Hey, folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's intraday analysis video, brought to you by the creators of proprietary price, pattern, and time methodology. Learn the PPT strategies and profit for life. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. All right, into the action we go today on this Thursday, October 31st, 2013. The time is just a little bit after 1:40, so 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time. And the fact is, as we look at today's action in the market, we can clearly see the markets are in float mode again after early gyrations. So early in the day, folks, we had an initial push up, then we collapsed down. We pierced the low from yesterday, and this low from yesterday means a huge amount. All right, let me explain this. All right, so right away you're looking at the SPY chart here on 10 minutes. So each candle is 10 minutes. Okay, and we're showing this is yesterday's, all of yesterday's price action, and this is today's. And remember, the SPY is the S&P 500 tracking ETF. So you're essentially looking at the S&P 500 here. All right, now the key here to recognize is that the stock, the SPY, pierced this low. We even got a close below, but it never truly broke down. All right, there's something called confirmation, which is a proprietary technique here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. And even though you close below, that's where the amateurs would think there's a breakdown. We know better here. And when you learn confirmation, you understand that. But bottom line is there was no confirmation. Therefore, it was a fake, what we call a fake breakdown. All right, and a fake breakdown is a way to get the little guys on board on the short side and then rip it up in their faces, taking their money. And that's exactly what happened. So today we had a close below, no confirmation, and the market ripped back up. And now we're in float mode, very gentle float volume. Look at the volume now. Volume is super, super light, most likely to remain so for the rest of the day and even possibly tomorrow, as tomorrow is Friday. And again, this is after the Federal Reserve released their FOMC policy statement. Now, the one thing I would like to say about the FOMC policy statement is that the Fed basically said the best case scenario for everything. They said we're going to continue to print, we're going to print the same amount of money for the foreseeable future, and that generally would have seen a monster rally. If you go back a month, 2 months, 3 months, we would have seen a monster rally in the markets. However, you did not see that. Now, what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that the charts are exhausted to the upside. So yes, you're in float mode today. Spider's up 20 cents. Markets essentially are on the flat line. But you don't have the same momentum being triggered by the Federal Reserve that you have in the past. And that's actually a small bearish signal. All right, now granted, unless we confirm below this low from yesterday, there's no confirmed reversal in place, so you could still float around here. But bottom line is, if the best you can get out of a Fed positive statement on interest rates and on the QE, quantitative easing, the printing of money essentially, if that's the best case scenario, this market's in a lot of trouble. Earnings have now come to a close. We saw some earnings today, which I want to discuss in a little bit. But again, not a very good situation here for the markets, even though you're seeing a little bit of a float on light volume. And again, the float can continue in general. All right, floats can continue for little periods of time, but again, it's to me the beginning of the end. And once we confirm below the low from yesterday, if that were to happen today, that would be big. In the future, we'll have to look for another confirmation signal below a key level. But if that were to happen, then it's game over for this market in the short term, and you would see big pullbacks. All right, so right now, projections out. As long as we don't confirm, the market can chop sideways, maybe even float up a little bit on light volume. But again, look for that big, substantial volume downside move, and that will put in a major top, in my opinion. All right, if we go to the daily chart, you can see what we're talking about. So major trend line stretching all the way back to 2010, 2011, all the way up. Right now, they've been hovering above or right on this level. That's the most extended generally we'll see it at this point in time, and that's why you're hammering back on it. Once you break back below this level, game on to the downside. If you stay here, you could, as I said, float a little bit more, maybe float up just a tiny bit, but there's not much upside in my opinion. Very little upside, minimal upside in this market at this point in time. All right, going to a couple key earnings announcements. One I thought was very interesting was Visa. So Visa's down $6.31, right? And Visa came out today with decent earnings, but they said that sales in October, charges on the credit card essentially, were horrible. In other words, the retail consumer just vanished in October. Now, what happened in October? Well, obviously we had the government shutdown, and that's the reasoning behind it. But what I will say is the consumer keeps on getting hammered. And the one thing about the consumer to keep in mind is that the consumer is coming into the Christmas season. If they're not feeling jovial to spend, that's a major issue for retailers as well as the Visas and the MasterCards out there. All right, and the one thing I've kind of been drawing the parallel to with Visa, Visa said something about how bad sales were in October. MasterCard totally skipped over it. Now, technically, the October period's in the next quarter, in this final fourth quarter of the year, so you don't really have to say that, but Visa did, and MasterCard didn't say that. So MasterCard's actually hovering up here, doing decently. It's basically flat to slightly lower on the day. My analysis shows that we should see further downside on MasterCard. MasterCard should start coming in based on what Visa said. All right, so again, I'm actually short in the research center in MasterCard myself. But again, if you want to know the exact trade levels and everything else, you got to come take the 7-day free trial here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. All right, bottom line is that's one of the things that caught my eye. MasterCard also reported earnings today, which were good, but they just kind of skipped over that October period. They stayed in within the third quarter, didn't go to the fourth quarter and what was going on so far in the fourth quarter. All right, a couple other things we talked about. Facebook again. Interesting on Facebook, guys. If we flip over to Facebook here, really all over the map. Facebook yesterday after hours was as high as $58 a share. Then this morning it got as low during market hours, as low as the 50 MA here, Pierce, to 46.5. Right now it's hovering around just under 52, which the funny thing is that's equidistant. It's equal distance from the after hours high yesterday and the morning low here. And I find that fascinating. All right, very interesting how it's settling into this kind of 52-ish level. The one thing I want to show you here on the intraday chart on this is, look at this. See this gap fill? And gap fills just by nature when it's above current price are going to be resistance, below support. But take a look at this, guys. Draw a trend line right from this line here at gap fill, right across. Look at that. So again, these are just beautiful scalps, and we scalped Facebook multiple times today. I did one pre-market off the lows buying it, and then I did actually a short right up in this range, gap fill 20 MA and 50 MA right up here. I shorted it down a little bit, as did members in the intraday stock chat. So there's some nice action there for sure. For those of us that wanted to scalp, and I shorted as well right up here and made a quick little scalp to the downside off of that pullback. We'll see if it gets through this level, but there is resistance here at the 52 level on Facebook. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a tidbit I want to mention. And just looking at a couple other charts, generally a mixed bag today. We have Baidu down $2, we have Apple down $1, and we have JPM down 75 cents. JPM continues to be under pressure. So many of these investigations, and you can see JPM at the lows of the day, even though the markets are hovering relatively near the highs of the day. And if we go to the daily chart on JPM, there was a small bearish pattern here of development, which actually foretold this move. Now, what's a bearish pattern? Well, a bearish pattern would be like a bear flag or a bull flag, or a bearish pattern would be a head and shoulder pattern. You know, those type of situations. So here you have a bearish pattern, bearish in spirit of flag pattern, this down move and this inside bar consolidation. So that's called, and that basically dictates the price action that you'd expect, and that's to the downside. And sure enough, breaking through moving averages, and you should head down over the next day, at least into the 200, I would think, on this chart. Okay, so a little interesting little tidbits there. A couple other stocks I'm keeping on my radar. All right, let's go into YRCW. This stock has been hammered, but it's actually floating up off the lows finally. And I want to show you this. I actually wrote an article the other day on this one. And one thing that's interesting is that you finally got to this little pivot right in here. Let me just draw a line in there. Just draw a trend line right across there. You touch that, and you're very close to the gap fill right below. So I actually think that this stock is in a range. Yes, it could go down to gap fill, which is around the $8, make that $7.90 level, 85-cent level. But at the same time, right in this range, I do think based on this reversal, you probably start to expect a little bit of a bounce. So keep an eye on that one, folks. I do encourage you to watch very, very closely on that stock. As you, again, at some point, especially with the reversal today with a little bit of a tail there, I wouldn't call it a bottoming tail just yet, but if we close right around the highs of the day, then I think you have it. Then you probably see further upside on that one. Okay, and that's YRC Worldwide. YRCW is the symbol. All right, so really some interesting charts out there. Bottom line, markets again, you know, hovering. Let's flip back to the SPY. Take a look again. This is the daily SPY, but if we want to go to the intraday, you can see the markets are hovering above all three moving averages, which are, you know, light minor support at this point. The big key today is this low from yesterday. We pierced it. We never confirmed through it. And if we were to confirm, then you're looking at a major potential breakdown in the markets. All right, it should be like that 5% minimum correction we've been seeing over the last 4 or 5 months, where you get these big pops, big moves up, and then you get that 5% pullback, maybe even more. So we'll have to watch it very carefully. But right now, the markets are above that, so there's really nothing to worry about. I would say choppiness, sideways action for the next few days, as long as you stay above that level. And overall, that's what I'm looking for in this chart. Okay? All right, guys. On that note, I'm going to bid you all farewell. Got to get back to trading. Got to get back to my members. Just don't forget, 7-day free trial here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. Very simple to do. No obligation. come join us, see what the calls are in the research center. Remember, research center members, that's what most of you are going to be in, that because that's for investors and swing traders. 401ks, investment accounts where you're holding stocks overnight, multiple days, multiple weeks, and then day traders geared towards the intraday stock chat, which is day trading, and that's a free trial for that as well. So you can always try that out. Have a great afternoon, great evening. As always, have a great time in this market environment. Always a fun time to see the moves in these stocks like Facebook. And again, I will talk to you soon. Take care.